Good afternoon. My name is Maria Monteiro, and I am honored to share some of my thoughts on this inspiring and consequential work, engaging children with music. A little bit about me. I was born in Brazil, but have been living in the US since 1984. I have three main occupations. I direct the music program at Baptist University of the Americas, a young and small school in San Antonio. I am a full-time doctoral student in church music at Baylor, and I am the music director at First Mexican Baptist Church, also in San Antonio. I would like to describe these three distinct scenarios for you this afternoon. These scenarios are not hypothetical. They represent real experiences, and I hope they communicate some truth to you today. Picture number one. First Baptist Church, Recife, northeastern Brazil, 1970s. This was my home church. I grew up Baptist, which meant that I was part of a religious minority, not persecuted, just ignored. This was the place where I learned about God and the Bible, and got to see my cousins, aunts, and uncles every week, where I made friends and where I recognized my love of music. My pocket-sized hymnal, Words Only edition, was a favorite book, and I still remember some of the songs I was taught in Sunday school, Vacation Bible School, and even remember some of the rehearsals we had for several weeks towards the end of the year, getting ready for Christmas. There were no props, no fancy equipment, no books, no instruments, just a brave, dedicated song leader and dozens of children, some of which, like me, would savor every moment of those sing-along experiences. Picture number two. Westbury United Methodist Day School, Houston, late 1990s. This was my first official job teaching music to preschool children. Yes, preschool. I was drafted by a dear friend who needed a substitute music teacher twice a week. By then, I was married and had a child myself, but I had never considered teaching other people's children, especially those under the age of 18. I said yes to my friend's plea out of love for my friend and because I felt it was my Christian duty. After several weeks of teaching music to children ages 18 months through kindergarten, following the competent instructions of my friend, I began to see a whole new world revealing itself to me. My understanding of music was enriched by witnessing very young children finding joy, pleasure, and laughter in music. Little kids being moved by songs and stories expressing a variety of human emotions. 4-year-old children being curious and intrigued by songs and stories about Jesus. I always told the Bible story behind the songs we learned, and often drew pictures to illustrate them. I remember one of my students asking to hear the resurrection story again and again and again, and finally saying, "Would you draw these pictures for me to take to my parents? I don't think they know that story." Some of the 2-year-olds with very limited vocabulary would act out our little plays and have a great time simply by doing what the music told them. Once I understood what these children were able to do, my job became a very exciting adventure in which I would come up with a general plan, share it with the children, and go where the music took us. Granted, sometimes it was a very short, uninspiring trip, but all the time it was simply amazing. Picture number 3. First Mexican Baptist Church, San Antonio, 2008 to the present. I became a member of Primera, that's the Spanish for first, that's how we call the church, Primera, in 2008. It is a bilingual, low-income congregation in the heart of San Antonio. We just celebrated our 130th anniversary, and we are very proud of our history. The second oldest Mexican church in the US. The first is Laredo, by the way, if you're curious. In 2009, I decided to start a children's choir. We meet every Sunday afternoon for 1 hour in a spacious room with a very out-of-tune piano. We welcome children ages 3 to 11. Sometimes 2-year-olds join us too because they want to be with their siblings. We have about 20 children in the choir. I count on a talented and faithful pianist, at least one cheerful helper, usually but not exclusively my husband, and no budget. No budget. The choir sings 6 to 8 times a year in both English and Spanish, even though only about half of the children are fully bilingual. Some speak English only, some speak Spanish only. Well, many of you here today may have lived similar experiences. Some of you may be currently involved in comparable endeavors, and others may feel little or no connection to what I have just described. Whatever the case may be, I would like to invite you to consider a few of the lessons I have learned and continue to learn from these experiences as I reflect on the intersection of church, children, and music. In other words, some of the reasons why I believe engaging children with music matters. First, music plays a crucial role in supporting a child's spiritual development. If you grew up Baptist in the 1960s and 70s, as some of you may have, you are probably familiar with my childhood playlist, which includes, and let me know if you recognize this melody by raising your hand, because I'm going to sing in Portuguese. I was in Brazil, remember? So here we go. Meu bom pastor é Cristo, com ele andarei, com luz na calma as águas, com ele andarei, sempre, sempre. Zaqueu pequeno, quase não desejava trajetórias. Pare, eu vou contar-lhe o que Cristo fez por mim. Pare, eu vou contar-lhe. Stop, nobody. No meu coração, vem hoje entrar o Cristo, vem hoje morar, vem para ficar no meu coração, Lord Jesus. These are some of the earliest gospel truths I learned as a child. And today, at 55, I can recall them with no difficulty. These songs were engraved in my mind. How grateful I am for those who took the time to teach me these wonderful words of life. Second, music plays a crucial role in supporting a child's emotional development. As I mentioned earlier, while teaching at the day school in Houston, I was surprised to observe how music could affect a young child's emotions and mood. For example, while chanting and acting out the nursery rhyme, Little Miss Muffet, some of the children would refuse to play Miss Muffet's part because they were too afraid of the spider, even though the spider was played by one of the other children again. Or when singing about baby Jesus while pretending to hold a baby in our arms, several children would rock baby Jesus to sleep with visible gentleness. Another example, this past December, while preparing for the children's choir Christmas program at the church, one of the songs we were practicing told the story of Joseph and Mary being denied a place at the inn in Bethlehem. After hearing the song for the first time, one little boy commented, "So much sorrow." Oh. Fear, tenderness, empathy, joy, wonder. Music can evoke all of these emotions and more. Invite us to taste them, and in the process, make us better human beings. Third, music plays a crucial role in supporting a child's cultural and linguistic identity. My congregation in San Antonio has taught me other ways in which the song of the church contributes to a child's development. In addition to the more common spiritual and educational dimensions typical of a church's music ministry, at this bilingual and bicultural community, music reinforces the concept of the church as a safe haven. for both Mexican-American citizens and Mexican immigrants. Let me explain. There was a time not too long ago when speaking Spanish in Texas schools was unlawful. Indeed, I have met some Mexican-Americans whose parents decided not to teach them Spanish in order to protect them. What would it be like, I wonder, to grow up in a home where parents and grandparents, some of which were American citizens, would speak a forbidden language? Yet, as poignantly described by a member of this marginalized community, Tejano, Mexican-American, and I quote, "The church opened its doors to us when access was denied in other places because we were Mexican-Americans. It accepted and affirmed us while other institutions rejected us, as well as our Mexican culture. It was in the church that I learned that God was bilingual, that God understood Spanish." Because I grew up in Brazil, I can easily imagine Moses, Hannah, Isaiah, Mary, Jesus, John, Paul speaking Portuguese. I first heard their stories in Portuguese. I even learned how to sing their words in Portuguese. Once I learned English, I got used to hearing these characters speaking in English. In San Antonio, a city founded 300 years ago, a Mexican city then, and where Hispanics account for a little over 60% of the population, it has become natural for me to hear these Bible characters speaking in Spanish. Churches such as Primera are often one of the few places where Mexican-American children and youth can learn formal Spanish. In fact, author Paul Barton points out that Latino Protestant churches have usually been one of those places where the use of Spanish has been encouraged and defended. Barton explains that such a community helps the assimilation of Mexican immigrants into American society and at the same time helps Mexican Americans to gain an awareness of their cultural heritage. I am keenly aware that the music I select for my church children's choir is a significant part of this process. I consider it a big responsibility to nurture a child's spiritual development, emotional development, and cultural identity. And that is just a sample of what music can do. Working at this intersection of church, children, and music is a bit like mining, a bit like gardening, a bit like beauty. I believe engaging children with music matters. It is my hope that you do too. Thank you.
I'm used to standing behind, I'm used to standing. A number of years ago, I moved to a city with 11 elementary schools. Only one of the schools, the magnet school, had a music teacher. Before long, I was invited to volunteer and teach music in one of the schools. So on Thursday afternoons, I taught choral music and recorder in 3 separate 5th grade classes. In fact, there was a period of time when, because of scheduling challenges, they had to combine all 3 classes together in one session, and I had 90 students at one time in my recorder class. After class, I would go to my car and turn on NPR, hit my head on the steering wheel until I got some sense of tonality. But the return of music in the school, even just for those 3 grades, had an extraordinary impact. The classroom teacher said, my children are different on Thursday when you come. They're more positive. They're more upbeat because they know music is coming on Thursday afternoon. The teachers would tell me about students that would stand up and gaze out the window and wait for my car to pull in the parking lot. It meant that much to them. We would do Christmas concerts and fill up the cafetorium with parents and give the school an opportunity to connect with parents that they rarely saw at any other time. So the principal would take time to talk about the learning fair and other academic programs when they had access to the parents, because teachers know the parents you see you don't need and those you need you don't see. So music was a way of connecting those back. But as I taught, going into the classrooms, I noticed there were some posters on the wall. And they would say, they had words like respect, loyalty, honesty printed on them. So I asked about the posters and learned that the classroom teachers were required by state law to have 10 minutes of character education per day, and that the posters were provided by a large corporation that made the character education curriculum free to them at no cost. Well, my wheels started turning, and I wondered if that curriculum had a musical component, because it seemed natural to me if we could teach songs to the children that were about those character education words, it would reinforce their teaching and make the songs relevant to them and what they were doing. It would be a win-win situation. So I contacted the corporation's public relations office, shy as I am. And soon 2 CDs arrived in the mail. Well, I listened to the recordings and realized immediately that the songs would not fit our needs musically. The tunes were catchy, but they had been recorded using adult voices. The melodies had wide ranges, extreme tessituras, complicated rhythms, and inconsistent rhyming patterns. The harmonies were complex, and the songs had heavy, thickly textured accompaniments that did little to support the melody. It was clear that these children's songs had been produced as sing-along and move music to be performed for the children, rather than songs that the children could engage and master in a significant way and perform for their peers and their parents. So I contacted the company again, and I thanked them for the CDs, and gently and somewhat naively asked if they had created any singable, child-friendly songs to go with the character development words. You might imagine how that question was received and answered. Well, then I asked if I might be allowed to commission some songs to be newly composed that the children could learn and perform with the curriculum. Again, you can imagine how that question was received. And I respectfully reminded the company that they did not own exclusive rights to the word respect. Then this was the only time in all my years of music ministry with children that I was threatened with a lawsuit. All I wanted was the opportunity to teach songs to children that recognized and honored the way God has made their brains and made them developmentally appropriate. And we went a whole other direction. That was a wonderful direction to create a songbook for the children. But we never did get permission from the corporation to write developmentally appropriate songs. And now I want to ask if we sometimes in the church are guilty of the same practice. Are we ministering during a time when the value of church children's choirs is being diminished in favor of energetic sing-along experiences? I hold fast to the conviction that we're not being good stewards of the musical, spiritual, and intellectual gifts that God has given children when we don't meet them where they are developmentally and guide them to fully explore their potential. There's no substitute or shortcut for engaging children in a fully immersive choral and music education experience in the church. It's in these moments of musical challenge, ministry, that we establish community and lifelong relationships and connections with the children. This past week, I was a clinician at Bonhoeffer Music Conference. It's a Presbyterian conference, meets in North Carolina. One of my assignments was to direct the 2nd and 3rd grade children's choir. It was a rising 2nd and 3rd graders. And I had like 22 girls and 3 boys. Only about a third of the children had front teeth. So it was real sweet. I will tell you this is just a little aside. We were talking about singing skills and watching the director standing up straight and tall, opening their mouth when they sing. having a pleasant expression and all those things. And so I had pictures of animals that illustrated these things. I had a frog that had two big eyes, and they remember that they're supposed to watch the director. And I said, I want you to always remember to keep both eyes on me. And Olivia down on the end says, Mr. Terry, I only have one eye. And she pulled her eye. Olivia, that's all right. Let's talk about this later. So as we were leaving, I knelt down, and Olivia said, when I was 4 years old, I had cancer. And so this is an artificial eye. And then she started to take it out again and show me. And I said, but baby, you are so brave. I'm so proud of you. Anyway, that was a little extra in there. So, but at Bond Park and at this conference, one of the songs we sang was Trust in God. It's a song with snippets of 4 Bible characters who ended up in a tight spot. There was Jonah in the fish, Paul and Silas in prison, Daniel in the lion's den, and brave Queen Esther in the king's court. So the chorus of this song tells the stories of these 4 Bible characters. And the chorus says, so when you're in a tight spot, a place you wish you were not, or with, in their case, you were not, be still and pray, listen and obey, and trust in God to show you the way. What these young singers didn't know was this song was inspired by a sermon series by Eugene Peterson, who wrote the message. The chorus of the song is based on Peterson's use of the Greek word askesis, which is his definition for turning to God when life corners us in a tight spot and we have no other options. So these 5 responses that we taught these little 2nd and 3rd graders, be still, pray, listen, obey, trust in God, are immediately understandable by them now, but also embody a depth of meaning that the children will be unpacking for the rest of their lives as they mature spiritually. Another one of our songs written by Mark Burroughs was titled, You Are Welcome. In verse 1, the soloist sings, Am I welcome here? Am I safe to sing or laugh or shed a tear? Will I be loved the way I am? Will friends be near? Am I welcome here? The second stanza, the choir then joins and says, You are welcome here. You're safe to sing or laugh or shed a tear. We love you just the way you are, so have no fear. You are welcome here. Then the bridge says, This is a place of peace and grace where all God's children have a home. God's reign will come, God's will be done. When all are loved and no one stands alone. And the last verse finally says, All are welcome here. All are safe to sing or laugh or shed a tear. God loves us just the way we are, so have no fear. All are welcome here. Then the little last phrase, the soloist comes back up and says, I am welcome here. So it was, what a great message for them. So we rehearsed the song all week, and we talked about how the lyrics might impact their choices when they see somebody alone in the cafeteria sitting by themselves, or when somebody new comes into their class or group, how to make them feel welcome. Well, the children sang like angels during our concert, and as after the concert, we had a little party, and at the end of that party, when the party was ending and the whole week was ending, we had our little goodbye time, and I got down on my knees, and we were saying goodbye and having high fives, and the kids, they just said, are you coming back next year, Mr. Terry? Please come back next year. Please come back next year. And then one little girl, out of blue, steps up and hugs me around the neck and says, You are welcome here. Oh, that got me, but also awe. She got it. And it reminded me again of the importance of teaching and modeling community and acceptance and helping children see and experience how we can be the presence of Christ for one another. This is also illustrated by Cece's story, who was a 5th grader in my older children's choir. And she sat on my left, front row, 3rd from the end. We'd started working on our music for our spring concert, which had the usual mix of styles and different types of songs. And I wasn't sure how one of the songs was going to go over. It was pretty reflective. It was pretty deep. It was called You Are Not Alone. When you are afraid that no one really cares. about the way you think or feel, and love's not anywhere. Words of Jesus spoken on a mount in Galilee are true today as long ago for you and yes for me. Lo, I am with you now and always, whether times are good or bad, when you're happy, when you're sad, remember, remember, you are not alone. Remember, remember, you are not alone. Then the second verse says, when each day is dark and troubles loom ahead, when you are tempted to give in, remember this instead. Jesus, holy comforter, guardian, guidest, finest friend, is with you now and evermore through time without end. And then, lo, I am with you now and always. So we've been learning that song along with all these other songs. And Cece was a faithful choir member, but her family was struggling. Her dad was only 42 years old, and he was on chemotherapy, and his prognosis was difficult. Sadly, in the middle of our semester, her dad succumbed to his illness. His memorial service was on Monday, and on Wednesday evening, she was back in her assigned seat. So while we were rehearsing one of our upbeat spirituals, her hand went up, and I said, yes, Cece, and she said, could we please sing, You Are Not Alone? And so we did, and while we were singing, the little girl next to Cece reached her hand over and placed it on Cece's hand. We know that music accelerates brain development. We know it deepens faith. We know it builds community. Most of all, music matters because it makes a lifelong difference in all these areas. It makes us more human, and it helps us become more Christ-like. Music matters.
Technology works. Well, good afternoon. I want to just welcome you all to Baylor. I'm the Director of Choral Activities here at Baylor, and I'm so grateful to my colleague, Randall Bradley, for inviting me to share a little bit this afternoon. It's great to work here with such great colleagues, and I've enjoyed coming to Alleluia Conference myself in the past. As a Christian music educator, I've given this whole topic of engaging children in music and just engaging people in general in music. Why does it matter? And I continue to reflect on this. I just finished writing a chapter in a book that was all about engaging the mind, the voice, and the spirit through literature. And of course, not just in the church setting, but also in an academic setting. And it really gave me some time to think. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share some things that hopefully you won't think I'm totally nuts when this is all over. But these two things sort of converged in my mind. So, and then you ready? Where did music begin for you? And I really appreciated listening to what both of you had to say. But I know as a child, I too listened and was a member of the junior choir and the primary choir. And yes, I went to church with Mom and Dad, and they sang in the adult choir. And so truly, even though I had been in school for music programs, it was truly the First Baptist Church of West Monroe, Louisiana, that probably initiated my original interest in music. And it was done through choir there. Children and music are the best of friends. We know that. And my colleagues here just described some wonderful, wonderful examples of that. Children and music are really inseparable. We learn through song, they have movement, they love the playing of the instruments, and I can't even imagine being in the same room with that many recorders. Oh, wow. And yeah, sometimes we have those pianos that don't tune too well, and it's unfortunate for us because really children deserve the very best musical experiences, the best materials, the best activities that we can possibly provide them. We don't always have them, but that is our challenge. Howard Gardner recognized the importance of music in the cognitive development of children through his theory of multiple intelligences. In fact, he stated that music is one of the first intelligences to develop in the child. Singing is basic to the human experience, and as human beings, we just have to consider what draws us in the beginning to song. The human voice is the original instrument of personal expression. Kay Norton, in her book Singing and Well-Being, discusses the elemental nature of the human voice documented in musical scenarios throughout history. And this is her little, and I guess I can read it. Sirens lured the sailors to rocky shipwrecks in Greek myths. Confucius wrote of singers with great respect, and the authors of ancient Sumerian, Egyptian, and Sanskrit texts included songs in their chronicles. The biblical King David was an influential singer, and traditional healing ceremonies throughout the world featured chanting. Songs have marked births, teenage years, courtships, weddings, and funerals. And I think we could all, as believers, say that it's integral to our worship. The singing voice is an extremely personal and intimate instrument, and it conveys deep emotion. It's also very, very closely tied to one's own self-identity. How do children learn to sing? Well, in my opinion, they do it by singing, and the younger, the better. The research of Dr. Ed Gordon offers a strong argument for musical training in the development of skills such as pitch matching in children. And he felt that if such skills were not acquired by age 9, I think is this magic number, it was much more difficult to acquire as the child became older. Now, I don't know that everybody believes everything that Dr. Gordon says, but I have to tell you that I tried this out when I was teaching at a private Christian school, a classical Christian school in Tampa, Florida, Berean Academy. We focused on pitch matching skills consistently from grade K up through grade 6. And when I started at that school with those kindergartners, I'm happy to tell you that by 3rd grade, we did not have one non-pitch singer there. We did lots of fun stuff, focusing on short, simple songs, repetitive parts, echo singing, relatively few pitches, but also always considering an age-appropriate type of vocal range for these children. Graham Welch's work in the UK describes 4 phases of development of singing in children. The phase 1 is more like sort of this chant. It's kind of a monotone type of singing. Phase 2 is an approximating pitch and a general contour of melodic line. The phase 3, melodic shape and intervals are mostly accurate, but staying within the tonality kind of goes phrase by phrase. They change a lot. And finally, phase 4, no significant melodic or pitch errors are reported. Graham's work, and I had the good fortune of working with him for a couple of summers at the Voice Care Network up in Minneapolis. And his work started in 1986, and so many other people have built upon that. But we found that these studies are replicated throughout the world, and surely there is this sequential pattern as far as singing is concerned. And we do a good job, I think, in our churches to help children learn to sing. I think your comment, though, I have to say, is very interesting, because there is a switch from when I was a primary and a junior singer to what is happening in some areas. Yesterday, I asked my 6-year-old granddaughter, McKenna, I said, what is it about music and singing that you really like? And she had one answer. She said, because it's pretty. Okay, translated from that 6-year-old vocabulary, I think what she really meant was that she found that it contained beauty. In fact, she even went so far as to say that she thought the music on the page looked pretty as well. Beauty is one of the chief conduits for the engagement of the mind, the spirit, and the voice. The term beauty not only applies to the hauntingly lyrical melodic phrase, but can be applied to the challenges and complexities of multimeters or polytonal music that we find in today's culture. Indeed, beauty is infused within music, and thus can be found in melody, harmony, rhythm, and in the case of song, in text. There can be no doubt that there is power in music. As a music educator, I have long believed that music has the power to change lives. I believe it to be a gift from God, to touch our hearts and ultimately draw us to Himself. The same sweet tones that calm the distressed baby can often be used to soothe the sadness of an Alzheimer's patient or ease the suffering of one who is ill. there is also power in the spoken word, the text. The words of the song engage our minds and awaken the imagination. From elementary grades, teachers often place concepts into musical frameworks. We place scripture into musical contexts, and the words are somehow not only easier to learn, but they stay in our memories longer. I believe that it is this musical inner magnet of beauty that also draws the mind of my mother, who suffers from late-stage dementia, to a familiar song. She can't remember who I am or what she had to eat 10 minutes earlier. But if I begin to sing Amazing Grace, she chimes in with not only the words, but the harmony as well. There is little doubt that as human beings, we are musically hardwired. In fact, recent research indicates that singing in particular has the capacity to spark memory for some Alzheimer's sufferers. Other benefits of musical intervention with dementia patients include improved and happier mental outlook, increased socialization, a calmer demeanor, and a reconnection, at least for a period of time, with the world around them. I suppose this is interesting to me because having a granddaughter and having a mother going through life at the same time, there was a point in time where Mom was here and McKenna was here developmentally, and I've watched this happen. And it's very interesting to me. Perhaps you've seen this video. If you have not, you need to. Every time I watch it, I'm amazed and marvel at the power of music. So we're going to take just a second, and I hope this works.
About Alzheimer's, and it's from a new documentary that's called Alive Inside. So let's watch it, and then we can talk about this.
Can you hear all right? It's coming off my computer.
Henry is one of the 5 million people in America with dementia.
Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa. How you doing?
All right. Fine.
Wait, who am I?
Sorry.
Okay, it's Jenny. How long have you been in the nursing home?
Sorry, let me try to see if I can recapture this. I'm sorry. Oh dear. I'm so sorry. Okay. I don't know why it's not doing this. This is really slow.
Another video clip, and this is about
Well,
and
it's a great clip. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why this isn't working. It worked earlier. So anyway, we'll just continue on. And now I can't get this to go. My next slide. So this is really not good. Can you help me out, please?
I feel bad.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, if you haven't seen it, it's Henry. And Henry is an incredible example of one coming alive. When music comes back, the world opens up for him. I came across this quote from Hildegard von Bingen, who lived in the 12th century, from a book by Elizabeth Labat, who was a French woman who lived from 1897 to 1975. In her book, The Song That I Am, she states that it was Hildegard's belief that while our soul has fallen from its first beauty, it remains possessed of harmony and retains the gift to express it. It is precisely when, under the breath of inspiration, the soul remembers that it is exiled far from home, the condition of paradise, that it is able to communicate that which vibrates and sings within it. I love these words that Hildegard writes here, because when I think of music and why I've been drawn to it since before I could walk, this summation seems to clearly put things in perspective for me. At last, an answer to the mystery of how I can hear a melody, and before I know what has happened, find tears streaming down my face. I believe that it is because each of us as human beings are drawn to beauty. God is the author of beauty. Thus, I believe that through the beauty which is music, we are drawn to Him. Sometimes in the midst of turmoil, the only peace that can be found is in the beauty and simplicity of a familiar melody or hymn that wraps itself around our senses, and we are somehow whole again. In St. Augustine's words, he who sings prays twice. How interesting it is to realize that this gift of music, so much a part of the human experience, is indeed one of the first intelligences to develop in a child. And it's interesting to me that it is also one of the last aspects of the mind and memory to leave with us. So for me, does music matter? I believe it is part of our very DNA as human beings. It provides the all-important intersection. It connects us with ourselves, connects us with each other, and it is at the heart of our connection with God, our Creator. It matters in major ways. I'm here because of it, you're here because of it. And I believe for myself, there is no way that music and it can be separated from God. And therefore, that is the reason that we must, wherever our sphere is, whether it's in the church or in academia or in a community group, to me it's hard to separate God from it. I think the words that are in our songs are chosen for a reason for me as a conductor, because I feel as though that these words are the logos, they are the truth. And that it's my job strictly to simply deliver and plant those seeds. And I have every belief that God waters that in whatever grade, age, or whatever context I happen to be working in. So, thank you.
Let's have all three of our presenters come and stand at the front, and then we'll have just a moment of conversation here. We've got about 15 minutes. Thank you all for staying right in your time. And see, everybody went about 2 minutes under, so that was
Well, it would have been a little longer.
yeah. But let's have some time just to talk to these folks. Thank you all for very, very inspiring presentations. You know, I could go home now and be inspired just from this one session, so thank you for that. But what questions do you have, or responses, comments, or affirmations that you might like to offer? You can offer to the whole group or to one particular person a question specifically, or any way you choose.
Well, I just want to say thank you, because so many times when you're out there and you're with the children, you're thinking, oh, I'm not, you're hearing that, okay, it's positive reinforcement. I'm not alone in my own little bubble here, so thank you. That's good.
Simon Sinek has this thing called the golden circle, and it's three rings. You know, the outside one is what we do, and most people know what we do, and then the next one is how we do it. The inner circle and the key is why we do it, and you've seen this before. And when we're able to articulate why we do what we do to others and to ourselves, it helps motivate us in that way. And there's some, in some regards, you know, I feel like we were preaching to the choir.
No.
We all in total agreement. The challenge that we have as music educators in the church and in other roles too is communicating the value of music to parents, to pastors, in schools, to principals, what I call people in power, who hold the keys to the resources that you need to do your program, convincing them of the value of music. And I'm actually going to address that a little bit in one of my sessions later on This Is Your Faith and Bring On Music, to actually be equipped with some concrete things to do to educate these people who really need to know what we all know and believe, and I think have reinforced in here.
Yeah, I think to be an advocate for music, whether it's, and strangely, in the church, it's just as important here lately. Sometimes we want to make it more difficult than it is. And in fact, the simplicity of, and I guess that's why I was drawn to the concept of music and the concept found in text and the basic elements of music, because the simplicity of it is what, to me, is, the older I get, the simpler my mind becomes. And the more I appreciate simplicity. And I think that is what we need to be able to talk to parents about, to talk to administrators, even other clergy, simplicity and beauty.
Well, I think that's very important, simplicity and beauty, and those human qualities, because there's a pitfall we can fall into as music advocates, and that is like when we say, let's do music for the children, it makes them smarter academically. And we're really, in the long run, doing a disservice to music when it becomes just a tool for helping in these other areas. And I read one blogger that said, saying that the value of music is just to make you smarter is like saying kissing is just to help you strengthen your lip muscles so you can eat soup without spilling it. You're diminishing the value and the importance and the joy. So music's the same way. We need to continually talk about how it enriches our lives for a lifetime in every dimension that we have. And keep saying that, yes, it does make us smarter. It does help us network with other people. When we sing, we have 5 things. Like you're singing with children and they're doing a movement like this. What's happening? Well, there's text, there's melody, there's harmony, there's rhythm, and there's movement. And the synthesis of those 5 things happening at the same time just lights up the higher learning centers of the brain, and just improves intelligence and everything else. That's a wonderful thing, to know, but it does so much more. It makes us more human and more Christ-like.
One thing I have learned that sometimes we come to places like this and we meet people that do wonderful things and you have great resources and it's wonderful. I enjoy it myself, but I've been in some big churches and small churches, and I think the truth is we need to want to do it and not wait until we have everything that we think we need to do it.
Yeah.
We have our hearts, our conviction, and the children. And don't get discouraged. I think when I started choir in my church, where I am now, for several Sundays, months, I think we'd have 3 children, 6 children, 1 child. But then you just stick with it because you know it's important. And eventually, they will understand and the parents will understand. But I think not to be discouraged, it's not about necessarily getting big and fancy, but just, like you said, simplicity and the essence of what we're doing.
I'll agree to start where you are, and we get in an all or nothing mindset that unless I have everything I need, I can't do anything. And I've always said, God can steer us a lot better if we're moving. It's hard for God to steer you when you're not moving. Just start and ask God to guide your inner wisdom to make those choices and build on these little successes and continue to improve as you go and build. And you've got to trust God in this too, that He's going to honor your faithful work and the work that you do in the ministry of children.
Terry, you said you were going to address in a later session this, but I think we'd love to hear a little bit now, if you wouldn't mind, and that is in terms of...
I'll give you an outline. Okay.
In terms of influencing the
people in power. Yes. There are, and I'll elaborate on these five. They're my 5S. My 5S is one thing that you need is stats, and stats can be cold, but they can also help inform people as you go. It's good to know facts about how wonderful a gift music is. So I've actually, the handout that I'm going to have has this my little super list of music facts on it. And some things, and if you don't get to I'm not selling my session. If you can email me or contact me, and I'll email those to you pronto. Okay, but stats, standards. If we want families to sacrifice their time, get their children involved in what we're doing, we need to do good work. We need to help children find their singing voice. We know that 17% of children are going to need specialized instruction, but to match pitch. We know that kids who aren't matching pitch and singing in their mid-tone by grade 3 stand to be inaccurate, limited range singers for the rest of their lives. So that's why I'm saying, yes, Leah, yes, absolutely. So what did I say? Stats, standards, stories. You know, stats are good, but stories, God created us, hardwired us for story and for narrative. To share these stories about the difference that music has made. How, and I was just moved by, when did you first realize that music was so wonderful? You know, that showed the picture of those little singers, you know. And then the steadfastness. Never give up. Don't give up. Keep going. You know, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 back, right? Yeah. And then finally, what I call stillness. This is where we be still and know that God is God and that He is working in what we're doing. So those are the 5 things.
I'd like to add to Terry's advocacy idea and to what we heard from everybody on the group. I think that some of us grew up in a time where we assumed that everybody understood the importance of what we were doing. And we didn't have to tell why. We simply had to offer a program or offer the opportunity, and everybody came and everybody seemed to get it, and it was something that people wanted. We're not in that time anymore. And we have to learn how to tell our story. We have to learn how to say why you want to bring your children on a Wednesday night or whatever time it is, why it matters. Tell the story of your own life or of your own children or somebody else's children or whatever. But we have to tell that story. We have to be able to be that advocate. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I direct 2 choirs every week, and I have committed that at some point in every rehearsal, we're going to have at least 30 seconds of why we do what we do. And every time we talk about why we do what we do, somehow we get to the point of why. Because what we do and how we do, that works really well when everything's going great. But when life is not so good, the why we do it is the only thing we hold on to. And that's what keeps us going. And that's what makes us steadfast. And that's what keeps on and on when there are 3 kids. And on when whatever is the why. And I think I would even say for those of us who are a bit older in the group, the why is the thing that I keep returning to. You know, I'm a little past the how, and a little bit more interested in why. And you know, if it doesn't matter, really matter, I don't have much time for it these days at this point in my life. Just not a lot of time for the things that don't matter. Lynn and I talk about this quite often, and you know, we are always why it matters, how's it changing people's lives, and we constantly having these conversations.
Well, there's so much information. We're all in information.
Yeah.
It's hard. Sometimes it's just you lose sight of what's really important. I think it's wonderful to have those conversations, like what we've listened to here, to remind us, oh yeah, back to what's important.
And I'll say this one more thing to stop, but I think also to keep yourself connected to people that inspire you. And that's something that, again, Lynn is a person who's close around, and oftentimes we'll have, 2-minute conversation when she's coming into rehearsal and I'm going out. We swap rooms. And, sometimes just that little moment is that inspiration, and I've gotten to a place where I avoid people who don't inspire me. And I intentionally try not to spend extra time with them, and I try to migrate to the people who inspire me.
Go see the Mr. Rogers movie.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay? That'll inspire you.
Yes.
Get ready to cry.
Yes.
Another question we have.
I just wanted to say one thing. I recently retired after 39 years as a music educator in the school system, being an orchestra director. And in the church I'm in, a few years ago, I was asked to be interim music director, and now I'm kind of filling in permanent part-time. And we are restarting our children's choir program because they haven't had one in the last 4 or 5 years under some other leadership. And we don't have a whole lot of children in that age group in our church at the moment. So we're hoping with my contacts and some other people that are helping that are also music educators in our community, we're going to be working with our schools to try to get kids to be involved in our music program, not making it just totally a church effort, but broadening it a little bit. And I just love it when I see church music people trying to make contacts in the schools. There's so many people out, kids out there that don't go anywhere, that don't have any connection. And so it really matters, and so I know I'm excited about trying to get to work with, and the other leaders getting to work with these kids.
It's a great outreach.
And part of what my attack or approach is going to be, in our school system, if you're in band or orchestra, you can't also sing in choir. And so, and that starts in 5th grade in our school system. And so we're going to encourage those instrumentalists, come and sing, you need to keep singing. And that's part of what we're going to try to encourage them to do too, is so they can still, play and sing both.
Anybody else? Thank you for being here, and thank you all so much for your